With all of the dramatic changes that China has undergone, will women forced by tradition to abandon their girl babies ever get the chance to hold them in their arms again? Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Jess, and today I'm going to be talking about the reasons as to why children in China were given up for adoption. Now, I believe that there are two main reasons as to why that happens. One of them being the more well-known one, which is the one-child policy, and the other one being China's traditional culture. This novel that I just quoted, Message from an Unknown Chinese Mother by Xinran, focuses on the culture of China and its society and standards. But for now, I'm going to start with the one-child policy. So what the one-child policy is around the late 1970s and early 1980s, China's population was growing at a really rapid rate. So much so that it was almost reaching the 1 billion mark. Now, of course, this was very concerning to the government, and they wanted to regulate this issue. So this is where the one-child policy, this idea, was created and then implemented. Basically, what this was that each couple was only allowed to have one child. One way of, again, forcing this policy onto the population was for sterilizations. One thing that you should know is that it was more strictly implemented in the cities rather than in the countryside. Because in the countryside, where people's lives are based on agriculture and they have a big piece of land to maintain, it wouldn't be surprising if they had maybe 2 or 3 children and kind of got by the policy. Again, it wasn't as strict there, but they still weren't allowed to have a lot of children. But that's basically it. Now, with that being said, I'm going to jump into the other reason as to why children were given up in China, and that is China's traditional culture. In the countryside, they're actually more traditional than in the urban areas, and with this being said, they value girls much less than they value boys. In the countryside, they thought that the boys would continue the family line. Boys would take care of the parents when they grew old. They were able to do more physical labor than girls were able to. And in addition, the way that land was divided, because it was owned by the government, they'd get more land if they had a baby boy than a baby girl. So with all of these reasons, they'd obviously want a boy more than a girl, and in addition to the one-child policy, that obviously did not help matters. I have actually an example here where one woman actually tried to kill herself twice because women are forced to kill their baby girls because they believe that their first surviving child had to be a baby boy. And this woman, Kume, was brought up with that belief. So I'll read a piece of this book, one of this woman's story. Ever since she was a child, she had heard adults say that if the first grandchild was a girl, it would not be allowed to live. If it did, it broke the family roots. The first surviving baby had to be a boy. So this quote just proves what I just said. This woman was forced to kill her baby girls, and she wasn't able to conceive baby boys. I highly recommend that you read this novel if you're further interested in this subject. It's really informative and actually quite truly moving, especially as an adopted child. It was a difficult novel to read, but extremely moving, extremely emotional. You can truly understand why women would give up their children like that, like why parents would do that in China. You truly understand and get a feeling as to what they were going through. In addition to that, I have another quote from the novel. Countless numbers of country women in China commit suicide by swallowing pesticides. In a 2002 United Nations report, China was at the top of the list for female suicides, and pesticides was the favorite method. China is one of the few countries where more women than men commit suicide. Again, another shocking fact. With the context, you can obviously understand as to why they would do it. Like, who can live with themselves if they are forced to kill their child? And in even some cases, what couples would do, or the mother would do, was pay a bit extra to the midwife because they'd want their child to live. So the midwife would take the baby alive and basically bring it to an orphanage or someplace where the baby would be found. With that being said, I guess I'll kind of get back on track as to reasons why babies were abandoned. I have a quote again here that explains in this person's case. Xinran, the author, found this baby girl as she was going to her work, and she broadcasted the story on her radio station where she works at, and this mother called Xinran, so this is what happened. "Hello, I began, but was interrupted by a tearful voice saying urgently, 'I know you're Xinran, thank you. I'm listening to your program at a corner shop, but I'm running out of money. Thank you for picking up my daughter, poor little girl. Thank you. Please kiss her for me, wrap her up warm.' This was the child's mother. I asked anxiously, 'Where are you? Your daughter's at—' 'I know where she is. I followed you this morning. I know you took my baby girl to the hospital. Thank you. My money's running out. Tell my baby I'm so sorry. I'm so. And with a click, the anguished words were cut off and the line went dead." This is again another woman's story where she could not support her child financially. It's probably one of the most difficult decisions that they probably ever had to make in their life. And to understand the situations that they were in, it's truly, again, shocking. Like, there's no words as to what these women faced. So there's one last reason as to why children in China were given up. It kind of falls into the category of China's traditional culture, and that is the lack of sexual education. If the youth don't know that unprotected sex leads to having a baby, obviously there's probably going to be much more children than expected. And that was actually the case with one woman in one of the stories, where she thought she loved this man and that he loved her. And the next thing you know, she's pregnant. And when the man finds out, he leaves her all alone, which kind of leads up to her being a single mother, then leads up to her being like, oh, how am I going to support this child financially? And she was faced with the difficult decision of aborting her baby or keeping it, but kind of having no one to turn to. Her parents would not let her come back to her community because she was at school at the time. And even her school kind of kicked her out, and she had nowhere to go. Again, as a single mother, you're probably facing a lot of stigma in that society. All of these reasons kind of tie around each other and kind of have a link or a relationship with one another. Like, the lack of sexual education led to being a single mother, which led to having difficulties to support your child. And with all of this, the one-child policy does not help matters. So all of these reasons kind of pile up. I, again, could not imagine the suffering that these women had to face. With that being said, I'm kind of just summing this all up for you. Yeah, there's, again, multiple reasons as to why children were given up, but at least in China. I hope that you guys learned something from this. I hope that it was informative. I know it wasn't necessarily the happiest of videos, but I think it's important to get those stories out there, and I don't know. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!